The surgery will cost over $150,000 with less than a 15% chance of success. That's what Dr. Martinez said calmly, his hands folded across the manila folder that held my grandmother's fate. My family didn't gasp. They didn't cry. They didn't even ask questions. They just looked at each other with that cold calculation I'd seen at every family gathering, every business meeting, every moment when love should have mattered more than money. My mother's voice cut through the sterile air like a blade. Let the old woman go. She's 89 years old. We're not pouring money into a lost cause. My Aunt Linda nodded, adjusting her Chanel bag. Mom's right. At her age, what quality of life would she have anyway? My Uncle Robert cleared his throat. We need to be practical here. The money could be better spent on the living. And just like that, they were gone. Out the door, out of her life, out of mine. No goodbye, no hesitation, no humanity. I was 19, working part-time at a coffee shop, barely making rent on my studio apartment. But I stayed. I liquidated my meager savings account. I signed medical forms with trembling hands. I took a second job cleaning offices at night because she wasn't just an old woman to me. She was my grandmother, Elena Rodriguez, and I refused to let her die alone. What they didn't know was that she'd live another 6 years. And in those 6 years, I'd become everything they said I'd never be. The hallway felt endless after they left. I stood there clutching Grandma's medical chart, my student loan statements, and what was left of my dignity. The echo of their designer heels on the linoleum had faded, but their words still rang in my ears. You can stay if you want, Maya, my mother had said without looking back. But don't come crawling to us when you're broke and homeless. The nurse beside me shifted uncomfortably. Miss Rodriguez? We'll need someone to sign the financial responsibility forms. The insurance only covers about 25% of the procedure. Without intervention, she won't make it through the weekend. I didn't hesitate. Not because I wasn't terrified, God, I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the pen. But because I couldn't bear the thought of her waking up alone, confused, wondering why no one had stayed. I signed every form they handed me. The stack felt like I was signing my life away. I handed over my savings, $8,400 scraped together from scholarships, work-study programs, and tips from the coffee shop. Then I marched straight to the hospital's HR department and begged for work. Any work. By 8 p.m. I was mopping floors in the cardiac wing. By midnight I was back at Grandma's bedside, holding her weathered hand while machines monitored her failing heart. She didn't wake up for 5 days. When she finally did, her voice was barely a whisper, her eyes cloudy with medication. But the first thing she said was, Mija, you stayed. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Always, Abuela. Always. That night, while she slept fitfully in her hospital bed, I sat in the uncomfortable visitor's chair and stared out the window at the city lights. The world outside kept spinning. People going to dinner, couples walking hand in hand, families intact and together. But here in this sterile room, something had crystallized inside me. They thought they'd abandoned me with a dying woman. Instead, they'd given me the most precious gift imaginable. Time to listen. Time to learn. Time to understand what real love looked like. They had walked away. I was about to walk forward. The doctors expected her to survive the surgery but decline rapidly. Instead, she began to improve. Slowly, incrementally, but steadily. It started with small things. Her appetite returning, her eyes tracking movement, the way she squeezed my hand when I read to her. I read everything I could find. Romance novels from the hospital gift shop, news articles on my phone, even medical journals when I got curious about her condition. Then one afternoon, as I was helping her with physical therapy exercises, she said, You know, Mija, your hands are steady. You should be a doctor. I laughed, but not mockingly. Abuela, I'm a college dropout working 2 jobs. I'm not doctor material. She looked at me with those sharp brown eyes that had seen 89 years of life. Says who? Your mother? Your family? Or you? I couldn't answer because I didn't know anymore. We moved into a tiny 1-bedroom apartment 6 blocks from the hospital. It wasn't much, peeling wallpaper, a radiator that clanged all night, and a kitchen so small we had to take turns standing in it. But it was ours. During the day I worked at the hospital and took online classes. At night, Grandma taught me things I'd never learned in school. Not just Spanish. I'd grown up bilingual. but the real language of survival. How to stretch a dollar until it screamed. How to read people's intentions in their eyes. How to build something from nothing and protect it once you had it. Most people, she told me one evening while we shared a pot of rice and beans, they think strength means never falling down. But real strength, Mija, is getting back up when everyone expects you to stay down. She made me promise to go back to school. Not just to spite my family, but to honor the sacrifices she'd made, the opportunities she'd never had. So I enrolled in community college, taking pre-med courses while working full-time. The schedule was brutal. I'd work my hospital shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., sleep for 4 hours, attend classes from noon to 6 p.m., then study until it was time to go back to work. But every evening I'd come home to find Grandma waiting with dinner and stories. Stories about growing up poor in Mexico, about crossing the border with nothing but hope and determination, about building a life in America one sacrifice at a time. Your mother and her siblings, she said one night, they forgot where they came from. They think money makes them better than their roots. But money without respect, without family, without love, that's not wealth, Mija. That's poverty of the soul. The silence from my family became deafening. At first, I thought maybe they just needed time to process, to realize they'd made a mistake. But then the text stopped. The family group chat I'd been in since high school suddenly didn't include me. When I called my mother on her birthday, the number was disconnected. I cried myself to sleep that night, but not just from sadness. From rage. How could they erase me so completely? How could they act like I'd never existed? Grandma saw it in my face the next morning. She never asked what was wrong. She just pulled me into her arms and held me while I sobbed. When I finally pulled away, she said, "Good. Let them show you who they really are. Now you know." "But they're my family," I whispered. "No, Mija. Family doesn't abandon family. Family doesn't choose money over love. Those people share your blood, but they're not your family. Your family is the people who stay." Money was always tight. I was working 60-hour weeks between the hospital and a weekend job at a medical supply store. I studied between shifts, ate ramen more often than I care to admit, and wore the same 3 outfits to class because I couldn't afford more. But somehow we made it work. Grandma, despite her age and health issues, insisted on contributing. She started a small business from our apartment, alteration services for the other hospital workers. Word spread quickly, and soon she had a steady stream of customers needing hems, patches, and repairs. She charged fairly but saved every penny. "This is for your medical school," she'd say, adding another 20 to the mason jar we kept on the kitchen counter. "Every stitch is an investment in your future." I tried to argue, but she was stubborn. "I spent 80 years learning to make something from nothing. Let me teach you." 3 years passed. I graduated from community college with a 3.8 GPA and was accepted to the state university's pre-med program. I was also accepted to their need-based scholarship program, which would cover most of my tuition. I cried when I got the letter, not just from relief but from pride. I had done it. Despite everything, I had made it. But the real victory came when I got my MCAT scores. 518 out of 528. Not just good enough for medical school, good enough for the best medical schools in the country. I was offered interviews at Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Stanford. Schools I'd only dreamed about. Grandma was napping when the Harvard acceptance call came. I sat in our tiny kitchen staring at the phone, unable to process what I'd just heard. When she woke up, I told her quietly, almost afraid to make it real. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she smiled, that brilliant, proud smile that had gotten me through every difficult day, and said, "Mija, you did it. You actually did it." We celebrated with Chinese takeout and a bottle of sparkling apple cider. It was the best meal of my life. The next 4 years were a blur of medical school, residency applications, and visits home whenever I could manage it. Grandma's health had stabilized, but she was getting frailer. I worried about her constantly, but she insisted I focus on my studies. "You can't save everyone, Mija," she'd say when I called feeling guilty about being so far away. "But you can save yourself. And maybe that's enough." During my 3rd year of medical school, I was doing a rotation in cardiology when I met Dr. Sarah Chin, the department head. She was brilliant, tough, and took no nonsense from anyone. She was also the first person to tell me I had what it took to be a surgeon. You've got steady hands and a calm head, she said after watching me assist on a particularly complex procedure. Have you considered cardiothoracic surgery? I laughed. Dr. Chen, I'm a scholarship kid from a one-bedroom apartment. Cardiothoracic surgery is for people with connections and trust funds. She raised an eyebrow. Says who? Your family? Your classmates? Or you? It was the same question Grandma had asked me years earlier. This time I knew the answer. I applied for the cardiothoracic surgery residency at Massachusetts General Hospital. It was the most competitive program in the country, accepting only 4 residents per year from thousands of applicants. I didn't think I had a chance. But I got it. The day I graduated from medical school, Grandma was in the front row wearing a dress she'd made herself, navy blue with tiny silver buttons. She looked radiant, proud, and frail all at once. As I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, I caught her eye and mouthed, "We did it." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. After the ceremony, as we were taking pictures, a familiar voice called my name. I turned to see my cousin Jennifer approaching, all smiles and designer clothes. "Why, oh my God, look at you, Doctor. I'm so proud of you." I stared at her, this woman who had stood silently while her parents chose money over my grandmother's life. "Jennifer. I know we haven't talked in a while, but family is family, right? I heard about your big accomplishment and I just had to come congratulate you." Before I could respond, Grandma stepped forward. Her voice was quiet but steel hard. "Where were you when she was working 3 jobs to pay for school? Where were you when she was studying until 3 a.m. every night? Where were you when she needed family?" Jennifer's smile faltered. Things were complicated." "No," Grandma said. "Things were simple. You chose money over love. You chose convenience over loyalty. You chose yourself over family. And now you want to claim credit for what she accomplished without you." I put my hand on Grandma's arm. "It's okay, well. She's not worth it." As Jennifer walked away, clearly flustered, Grandma squeezed my hand. "Remember this moment, Mija. Remember who was here when it mattered." My residency was brutal, 80-hour weeks, constant pressure, the weight of life and death decisions. But I thrived. I loved the precision of surgery, the immediate feedback, the ability to fix things that were broken. By my 3rd year, I was being mentored by Dr. Michael Thompson, one of the most respected cardiac surgeons in the country. "You remind me of myself at your age," he said one day after a particularly challenging procedure. "Hungry, determined, willing to do whatever it takes. But don't forget to have a life outside these walls." I smiled tiredly. "What life? I live here." Exactly my point. Success means nothing if you don't have people to share it with. But I did have someone. Every Sunday, no matter how exhausted I was, I called Grandma. She'd tell me about her week, her sewing projects, the neighbors she'd befriended. I'd tell her about my surgeries, my patients, my dreams of one day running my own department. "I'm proud of you, Mija," she'd say every time we talked. "But I'm more proud of the woman you've become. You stayed true to yourself." In my final year of residency, I was offered a fellowship position at Cleveland Clinic, one of the top heart centers in the world. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to work with the best surgeons, learn the most advanced techniques, and establish myself as a leader in the field. But it would mean moving even further from Grandma, who was now 94 and increasingly frail. "Take it," she said without hesitation when I told her. "This is what we worked for. But what about you? I can't leave you alone." She smiled. "Mija, I've lived 94 years. I've seen you grow from a scared teenager into a brilliant doctor. I've seen you succeed beyond my wildest dreams. I'm not alone. I have my memories, my pride, and the knowledge that everything I sacrificed meant something." So I took the fellowship. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but I knew it was right. The call came on a Tuesday morning in March. I was scrubbing in for surgery when my phone rang. Mrs. Santos, Grandma's neighbor, was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Maya, you need to come home. Your grandmother, she's in the hospital. They think it's time." I drove 18 hours straight, stopping only for gas and coffee. When I got to the hospital, she was awake, alert, and surprisingly peaceful. "There's my doctor," she said softly when I walked into her room. I took her hand, trying not to cry. "I'm here, abuela. I'm here." I know, Mija. You always are. We talked for hours. About my fellowship, about her childhood, about the future she wouldn't see but had helped create. As the sun began to set, she squeezed my hand and said, I need to tell you something. What is it? I'm proud of you. Not just for becoming a doctor, but for becoming the kind of person who stays. Who fights. Who loves even when it's hard. That's my real legacy. She passed away peacefully that night, my hand in hers, surrounded by the love she'd spent her entire life giving freely. The funeral was small but meaningful. Mrs. Santos was there, along with some of Grandma's sewing customers, a few nurses from the hospital, and Dr. Chin, who had driven up from Boston. People whose lives had been touched by her quiet strength, her endless generosity, her unwavering faith in family. I was standing by the gravesite accepting condolences when I heard familiar voices behind me. I turned to see my mother, my aunt, and my uncle approaching, all dressed in expensive black clothes, all wearing expressions of manufactured grief. Maya, sweetheart, my mother said, reaching for me. I'm so sorry for your loss. Our loss. I stepped back. Don't. Don't what? She was my mother too. I have a right to mourn her. You have a right to nothing, I said quietly. You gave up that right 6 years ago when you walked away. My Aunt Linda stepped forward. We're still family, Maya. Your grandmother wouldn't want us to fight. You're right, I said. She wouldn't want us to fight. She'd want you to feel shame. She'd want you to understand what you lost when you chose money over love. My Uncle Robert cleared his throat. Look, we know things got complicated, but... Complicated? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You abandoned your own mother. You left her to die alone. There's nothing complicated about that. We made a practical decision, my mother said defensively. We couldn't afford. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. You couldn't afford $150,000 to save her life, but you could afford the BMW you drove here. You couldn't afford her medical bills, but you could afford that vacation to Europe I saw on Facebook. You couldn't afford to care for your mother, but you could afford to pretend you never had one. They stood there silent because what defense was there? But I could afford it, I continued. A 19-year-old college dropout could afford what you couldn't. Because I understood something you never did. That love isn't a financial transaction. It's a choice. And you chose wrong. As they walked away, clearly uncomfortable, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction, not revenge, but pity. They would never understand what they'd lost. They would never know the joy of Grandma's proud smile, the comfort of her unconditional love, the strength that came from her unwavering belief in me. They had chosen money over family. I had chosen family over everything else. And in the end I had both. After the funeral, I found myself cleaning out Grandma's apartment. It was exactly as she'd left it. Neat, simple, filled with love. In her bedroom closet, I found a small wooden box I'd never seen before. Inside were newspaper clippings about my achievements, photos from my graduation, and a letter addressed to me. My dearest Maya, it began in her careful handwriting. If you're reading this, then I've gone to join your grandfather and you're probably feeling sad and alone. But I want you to know that you're never alone. You carry me with you in every decision you make, every life you save, every moment you choose love over fear. I'm leaving you everything I have, not much money but something more valuable. I'm leaving you the knowledge that you can survive anything. You can build something beautiful from nothing. You can stay true to yourself even when everyone else walks away. There's a savings account I've been keeping secret. Every alteration job, every $20 bill I put in that mason jar, every penny I could save. It's all there waiting for you. Use it to help others the way you helped me. Use it to build the life you've always deserved. But most importantly, use it to remember that family isn't about blood. It's about the people who stay. You stayed, Mija. You stayed, and because of that, you'll never truly be alone. The account contained $127,000. Every penny she'd managed to save over 6 years, carefully invested and grown. It was enough to pay off my student loans completely and still have money left over. But more than the money, she'd left me something invaluable. The knowledge that I was exactly who I was supposed to be. I finished my fellowship 2 years later and was offered a position as an attending surgeon at Boston Children's Hospital. My specialty? Pediatric cardiac surgery. I spend my days fixing broken hearts, literally and figuratively. I established the Elena Rodriguez Foundation in Grandma's honor. It provides financial assistance to families facing medical crises, ensuring that no one has to choose between financial security and saving a loved one's life. To date, we've helped over 200 families navigate medical emergencies without going bankrupt. I also volunteer at the free clinic where Grandma used to take me when I was young. Every Saturday, I see patients who remind me where I came from, who keep me grounded in what really matters. Last month, I was featured on the cover of Medical Weekly as one of the top 40 under 40 physicians in the country. The article talked about my groundbreaking work in pediatric cardiac surgery, my foundation, and my commitment to accessible healthcare. I didn't send the article to my family. I didn't need to. Because I've learned something they never understood. Success isn't about proving other people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. I still live simply. I have a small apartment near the hospital, I drive a practical car, and I save most of my money. Not because I'm cheap, but because I understand the difference between wealth and riches. Wealth is having enough to share. Riches is having more than you need. Sometimes, late at night after a particularly difficult surgery, I'll sit in my apartment and think about that day in the hospital when they all walked away. I think about the scared 19-year-old who had to choose between her future and her grandmother's life. I think about how that choice changed everything. And I realize that it wasn't really a choice at all. It was a revelation. It was the moment I discovered who I really was, underneath all the doubt and fear and need for approval. I was someone who stayed. Someone who fought. Someone who loved even when it was hard. I keep Grandma's sewing box on my kitchen counter, right next to the mason jar where I still collect loose change. Not because I need the money, but because I need the reminder. Every penny in that jar represents a choice. The choice to value people over profit, love over convenience, family over blood. Every morning I wake up and think about the scared teenager who signed those medical forms with shaking hands. I think about the woman who worked 3 jobs to pay for medical school. I think about the surgeon who operates on children's hearts with steady hands and unwavering focus. And I think about the grandmother who believed in me when no one else would. Who taught me that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up when everyone expects you to stay down. They thought they were abandoning me with a dying woman. Instead, they gave me the greatest gift of my life. The chance to discover who I really was. The chance to choose love over fear, family over blood, staying over leaving. I chose right. And that choice made all the difference. Today, I'm not just Dr. Maya Rodriguez, cardiac surgeon. I'm not just the woman who overcame poverty and abandonment to achieve success. I'm the granddaughter of Elena Rodriguez, who taught me that family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who's willing to share your burdens. And I'm the woman who stayed when everyone else walked away. That's not just my story, it's my identity. It's my strength. It's my legacy. In the end, they didn't just lose an inheritance. They lost the chance to be part of something beautiful. They lost the privilege of loving and being loved by an extraordinary woman. They lost the opportunity to witness what real strength looks like. But I didn't lose anything. I gained everything. I gained myself. And every day, in every surgery, in every patient I save, in every life I touch, I honor the woman who taught me that love isn't a transaction. It's a choice. And choosing love, even when it's hard, even when it costs you everything, is always the right choice. That's what Grandma left me. Not money, not property, not things. She left me the knowledge that I am exactly who I'm supposed to be. And that's worth more than any inheritance they could have given me. Every Sunday I still call the number that used to be hers. I know no one will answer, but I leave a message anyway. I tell her about my week, my patience, my dreams. I tell her about the foundation and the families we've helped. I tell her that I'm still here, still fighting, still choosing love over fear. And sometimes, in the quiet of my apartment, I swear I can hear her voice saying the words that got me through every difficult day. Mija, you stayed. You stayed, and because of that, you'll never truly be alone. He was right. I'm never alone. She's with me in every choice I make, every life I save, every moment I choose to stay when leaving would be easier. That's the real inheritance. Not money, not property, not things. Love. Faith. The knowledge that I am exactly who I'm supposed to be. And that's worth more than anything they could have given me. Hey everyone. Thanks for tuning into the Revenge Tempest channel. If you love this story, Please hit that subscribe button and join our amazing community. Drop a comment below letting us know where you watched us from. Your support keeps us going. Stay tuned for more epic story.